Yeah, thank you. And just in relation to the proposal on the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission, and thank the Minister for agreeing to look at that particular issue, because I think that body, it would be appropriate that they come in on it, but obviously that there is a balance in relation to the priorities for the policing service. There is a concern among the members that that the issue of their behaviour or complaints are being made against the members, and while the Garda Commissioner, and it might be, I know they don't have trade unions, but like in terms of the idea around policing services and that the Gardaí themselves being represented, the Human Rights Commission I think would be something worthy of being included, but that is of course in relation to the members of the public, but the Gardaí themselves also need to have some level of representation to counterbalance that. I understand that a lot of Gardaí are receiving complaints against them every Monday morning. Emails come in or into the police ombudsperson person and making complaints.
We're on section 61 and we should speak to the section.
I'm
going to be very strict on this now today, because yesterday there was a lot of stuff going on that was not relevant to the bill, and I'm not saying Senator Daly, but I'm just saying in general. So let's be specific to the bill, please. But I'm just saying section of the bill.
As a counterweight to the Irish Human Rights Council, which would be in relation to obviously issues and concerns by the behaviour of the Gardaí and the Garda Síochána, that the issue of a counterbalance in relation to coming up with the priorities for the policing service, that there needs to be a representation in some way, shape or form of the rank and file, because there are a lot of concerns regarding the lack of representation for them in the overall policing structure. Thank you, Cahill.
Thank you. As I said, I'll come back on this particular amendment here. I just have to engage with the organisation. What we're suggesting here in this particular section is that you would have bodies that have to absolutely be engaged with, but who the authority would then decide to engage with beyond that is a matter for them. So it could be any type of a body or any type of an organisation. The way in which they decide to engage, again, will be a matter for them, and I would assume that any organisation or any structure would decide on consensus who it is that they want to be part of that, and would decide in the same way that any other organisation would. But it's very much a matter for them who they feel it is appropriate that they should be engaging with. What we're trying to do in this section is set out exactly who they must engage with, and then there's an opportunity beyond that. And as I said, looking at IREC, given the overall objective of the amendment to make sure that human rights are upheld at all times, is something that I'm committed to doing, and will come back at report stage.
Senator Daly.
Just to come back on that, I think if we're going to put in someone like Ira, and we're talking about the policing priorities, and I'm sure members were listening to Morning Ireland this morning, we were talking about the retail theft that's going on at the moment, structured retail theft, where you have gangs now going into shops and literally clearing out sections, and it's nothing to do with, as was explained in the piece this morning, about the issue of inflation or food poverty, anything like these are non-essential items. And I'm wondering why, as one of those that would be listed as appropriate, wouldn't be the Gardaí themselves. I know the Garda Commissioner and the National Office, but if you're talking about the policing service, policing priorities, surely the rank and file members would be one of those who would be listed as that would have to be consulted with, because if they're not being consulted with, the Garda Commissioner obviously and others would be consulted with about determining the priorities. And just to read on the Garda Síochána in the performance, its functions relating to policing services. Well, clearly, we have ongoing issues, and we won't go into what has been raised here many times on the order of business in relation to the rank and file and other ranks and their ongoing engagement with the Garda Commissioner. But surely they would be one of the groups that should be consulted with. And I know the Minister has given an undertaking that there would be others that could be considered, but that's why I'm saying if you're going to have an issue of listening to the people on the ground, which would be in this case obviously being the Gardaí themselves, that they would be the ones who would have to be consulted. And I know there's an opportunity that they might be appropriate. I think they're possibly the most appropriate people in terms of setting priorities for the authorities of policing services, because literally they have said that they're not being listened to. And if we don't include them in this bill as legislators, I think we're overlooking them again. And I would ask that, notwithstanding the Senator's proposal in relation to the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission, I think the rank and file members of An Garda Síochána would appreciate our support for them and other ranks would be included as one of those that would have to be consulted with in putting this together. Because I think that, and this is, again, from listening to the Morning Ireland report this morning, you know, the shop owner was being told, well, why don't you have your own security? Why don't we're under-resourced? Take it up with your legislators. And this again is from Morning Ireland. No, but I'm sticking to the bill in terms of.
You're straying beyond it.
No, but I'm saying that the Gardaí are being perpetrated as not doing their job, and that is because things like organised crime in relation to retail is not being prioritised. There are things that are not being prioritised. We have all sorts of other issues that the Gardaí are saying the resources aren't being put into it because the priorities aren't there. And again, there was an announcement, and the person from the Retail Authority said, well, there was an announcement in relation to new Garda initiative around retail crime. And he said, I'm not too sure that's because the Oireachtas are actually having the meeting today. But he said, what we don't want is initiatives in relation to road safety and other priorities would come and go. But because they're not included in a sustained plan as listed as the priorities, which I think is a good idea, that we don't have a continual wave of initiatives around things like speeding, things like organised retail crime and others that aren't listed in this very worthy policy of having priorities. But the only way we can make sure that is the people on the ground who are dealing with all the crime, not statistics, but the people on the ground, their representatives are one of those that have to be consulted as a must rather than a may.
Thank you. So firstly, the Garda Commissioner represents rank and file Gardaí, so that's why he will be consulted. Secondly, the role of the Minister is to act on behalf of Government, having been appointed Minister, to approve the priorities in consultation with the other bodies represented here. It's laid before the Houses, as has been set out.
Daly?
Yeah. Just in section 61(8), it says that the authority shall from time to time, as it thinks appropriate, review the policing priorities to make such revision thereto as it thinks fit. And I would ask that the Minister consider an amendment to that, or looking at setting out a timeline in relation to that, because if it's not being measured, it's not being done. So if you don't have a timeline, this might be enacted, we'll do work. Pardon?
Interruption, please. Thank you.
It's in the list as it is. Excuse me. It says from time to time, and we would normally have every 5 years, every 2 years, an annual report, something. But what we're not having at this moment in time,
you don't actually necessarily get that all the time, no.
Pardon?
You don't actually.
Don't.
Sorry. Go on.
No, but like, if we're debating an entire section on setting the priorities by the authorities for police services. And all we're told about is they obviously will do one, but it will only do it from time to time as it thinks appropriate, review the policing priorities and make such revisions thereto as it thinks fit. And as we would all...
Thank you. Sorry, Senator Daly, interruption.
I'm just discussing the section.
The merits of not pushing the amendments in.
So what I'm asking is, in relation to having a timeline around that either they would be done every year or they would be done every 5 years, but that it's leaving it up to the Garda Commissioner, the National Office and other groups as it feels appropriate to do it at a time of its choosing, not at an appropriate time as done by the Oireachtas. And I think that it would be appropriate for the department to outline and make it clear when the authority should do that, as opposed to that it would do it from time to time and see appropriate thinking the policing priorities, because then we could be left with priorities that would happen for a long time, as we've often seen in legislation, that while sections are put in there, that the actual action there is no follow through subsequently in terms of the follow through that would be required on doing this report. So if it's done once, there's no comeback by the Oireachtas on it, other than ask questions at the policing committee as to when the next report is due, and we won't be able to ask the minister. It'll be the authority will tell us whether or not they're going to actually do a report, and they don't have to do under this. There's no requirement for them ever to do another report ever again, which is the entire purpose of the section.
Senator.
This is very similar to what we have in the 2005 Act, and this just means that if something were to arise, an issue were to arise, it allows the authority to be able to respond and to create new priorities if necessary, and that it's not static. So this is allowing for issues that may arise and tend to arise in this area.
Okay.